everyone. Thank you for joining us in our masterclass today on From Burnout to Balanced. I'm Sarah Troop, and I'm excited today to host our guest, Amy Stout. As a little background on who Emotion Connected is, we are an employee experience platform based out of Wisconsin, and we've been working with employers, brokers, healthcare systems since 2008 on building a healthier tomorrow. We offer well-being solutions, engagement solutions, benefits navigation, and just part of our mission of building a healthier tomorrow, we do bring different webinars, education pieces, and speakers like Amy on to share their knowledge and work with us to promote healthier, happier employees. So today, I have the privilege of introducing Amy Stout, a workplace well-being strategist. And Amy is the founder of Making the Connection that partners with HR and executive teams to reduce burnout, lower claims, and strengthen culture. Amy has over 30 years of experience in corporate leadership, and she turns employee well-being data into actionable insight, aligning wellness and benefits, capacity, and financial outcomes. Amy works as an extension of the HR team, handling strategy and execution so leaders can focus on running the business with both clarity and confidence. So thank you. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for having me. And thank you to everyone who's joining, whether you're live with us now or you're watching on demand. So what we're going to talk about today, I'll tell you what we're not going to talk about. We're not going to talk about pushing through. We're not going to talk about finding a way to do more. So this session is for you all to walk away with knowing the signs of burnout and how they show up so you can help your employees. So understanding what causes burnout and what doesn't, and leaving here today with realistic, simple strategies that you can help your employees with today. So burnout affects culture. It affects culture through engagement, retention, trust, performance. It also has to do with psychological safety, clarity, and belonging. So burnout is often misunderstood. Some folks think burnout is a lack of motivation or it's a weakness. I actually spoke with a woman last year who's an HR leader who's older like myself, a Gen X woman who was not quite understanding burnout to the extent of what it really is, and feeling like some employees she had were actually, needed to toughen up. But every generation comes through and grows up with different things going on in their life and in their world, and the younger generation had the pandemic to really shape them, and that affects how they show up. They saw the world stop in a minute, so they are more open to saying that they're burned out, and it is not it's not a lack of motivation or weakness. It is also not something that can be fixed with a day at the spa or a simple vacation. So burnout is the result of chronic, unmanaged workplace stress. This shows up as exhaustion, and that can be physical, mental, or emotionally exhausted. Cynicism or detachment, where employees are caring less and pulling back. And reduced effectiveness, where they feel like, why bother trying? I'm a drop in the ocean, and no matter what I do, I can't make an impact. I have a little story that of a friend named Maggie, and she's gonna come up a lot in this presentation because she's a perfect example of burnout. So she's a young woman that was hired at a small company for a newly marketing department. So a brand new department, going to focus on marketing. She and her hiring manager were the marketing people. A few weeks after she was hired, her boss left the company. So now it was only her. She really saw this as a great opportunity to make an impact and to learn a lot. So she was super excited and motivated. No one else in the company understood the value of marketing, though. And as she was sharing her ideas, creating great campaigns for clients, putting together seminars that were meaningful and valuable to prospective clients and clients themselves, um, she raised her hand for volunteer activities. Was always giving. And after a while, she began to feel unsupported because at a small company with being a department of one in a company that doesn't really understand marketing, she wasn't getting a whole lot of support or understanding the value that she was providing. So she felt that nothing she did made a difference, and she started pulling back. She stopped participating in meetings. She stopped raising her hand for the volunteer things. When she talked to her coworkers, she was very cynical. She was doing the quiet quitting, so basically just doing the bare minimum of her job. Um, and this went on for a long time. She was very detached. So her detachment went unnoticed by leadership. So when she gave her notice a few months later, they were shocked and surprised and were like, oh, we had no idea. So my intent is that this session today will give you all knowledge of things to look for so that you don't lose a good employee like Maggie. So there are some signs of burnout that may be easy to miss. They're pretty subtle. So you might see an employee who's tired all the time, doesn't have a lot of energy. They're feeling depleted. On the weekends, they're not resetting. And this might be a high performer who typically pushes through and gets it done. And we as a society are back to normalizing crazy busy and thinking that's where we all need to be again after the pandemic. But this is not refueling, and this depletes our employees' energy. There are also the folks who don't care like they used to. They emotionally withdraw is a way to self preserve. So they're apathetic, their work is getting done, their performance is steady, and they're not complaining. So this one it takes a little bit of awareness and kind of asking some questions if that's your employee. There are the folks who feel numb or irritable. This may look like a bad attitude or somebody who's stressed. Emotions are flat and they don't have patience. And if somebody's patience isn't there, they typically have no capacity. So then there are the folks who are doing the work, but they don't feel proud. So they've lost their meaning and their connection to the impact, and their work has become transactional and no longer fulfilling. So they're still productive, but they're just not tied to it anymore. So these are all capacity issues, as burnout tends to be, slow sparks before it becomes a big flame. Have you seen any signs like this, Sarah, before?
Well, I'm curious as I listen to you describe these things because you might, see someone or hear of someone that's already like this or feel like they've have been this way for a long time. Is it the change to these types of behaviors that indicate burnout and not necessarily like a personality trait?
Yeah, I believe it's yeah, a shift, right? A shift in
Mhm.
their personality or their mood. And it takes the awareness of, our HR leaders and their managers to understand if there's been a slight shift, to maybe to have a conversation and to promote that active listening, so that they can nip anything like this in the bud and get these hidden signs of burnout um, addressed so it doesn't come into full burnout and you lose a high caliber employee.
Mhm. And you say the trend right now is we're back to everybody being busy is cool.
I don't think it's cool. I think it's,
But the norm, the expectation,
yes. Do you see that on your side, or what do you think?
I I think so. I mean, I tend to be one of those people that's always busy anyway, and you're right, like, it doesn't need to be that way,
No.
right, to be productive?
Right,
Mm,
right. Yeah, doing more is not always good in terms of productivity.
yeah.
If you're a busy person that likes to fill your calendar with fun stuff, like I know you do, and you're active,
Mhm.
and you do things with your family, that busy is good. That's, soul rewarding. But when you're at work and you've got all these this overload, your work over, it's too much work, you can't handle it, things like that. That crazy busy is no good. So here are some behavioral signs that might be easier to see and notice. So withdrawing from meetings, again, I mentioned Maggie. So while we were in meetings, well, she didn't participate as much. She stopped sharing her ideas and giving feedback. This can also look like remote meetings where typically cameras are on, but now this person is camera off. They may be skipping optional meetings and even declining invites. They just don't have the bandwidth to engage. And this behavior often shows up months before performance drops. So again, just these signs of awareness to keep in your back pocket so that if you see these things happening, it can be addressed. There's also procrastination or overworking. This might look like missed deadlines or last minute scramble to get something done from somebody who didn't behave like that previously. It may be somebody avoiding tasks that used to be easy, or you have those people who are working longer hours and it's taking them more time to get things done that they could actually do in less time. They're taking fewer breaks. They're always on. They're having a difficult time prioritizing and starting tasks. This might look like perfectionism, but it is their nervous system in survival mode. And overworking is an accelerator to burnout. So something to keep an eye on. There's also the increased errors. It might show up as some small mistakes in emails or details, forgetting steps of a process that is widely known, needing more clarification or reassurance in their work, slower response time. Chronic stress reduces focus, memory, and processing speed. And your brain gets overwhelmed. So people make more mistakes when they're pushed past a sustainable capacity. And then there are the folks who are resentful and feeling disengaged, like Maggie. They're cynical, they're irritable. They think, well, why should I care? It doesn't matter. They pull back, they do the bare minimum. They're emotionally distancing themselves from their teammates in their workplace. There might be a group outing, and in the past, this person might have attended, but now they're simply not attending even those fun group outings anymore. So these people are overgivers, and they haven't had the time or chance to recover. They feel unseen, unsupported, and taken for granted. And then they feel resentful, which leads to the quiet quitting or the exiting, like when Maggie left. So, oh wait, I think it's.
Oh, did
it go back? There it is.
Sorry.
It's okay. So these are the key drivers. So this is what is really going on. And again, burnout is chronic, unmanaged stress in the workplace. So this is chronic, constant overload. It's not about working hard, but it's about not getting out from under the work. So workloads are increasing, or your priorities aren't clear. Everything is urgent and it doesn't feel manageable. So early on in my career, I worked in sales operations, and I had a manager who at one point in time, I had, 3 reports, 3 projects, I had 3 of something that was due all at the same time. So I said to her, well, what one do I prioritize? Because there are 3. And she said, all of them. And so when she said that, I thought, well, first off, that's not helpful. I'm not motivated. I still don't know where to start. And it felt unmanageable. Also, part of the constant overload is no recovery in between deadlines. So I recently met a woman named Christine who shared a story from a while back when she and her team were upgrading the system of the company. They were working nights, weekends. To upgrade a system is such a big nut to crack. It affects everything. And it was coming to crunch time. The deadline was unable to be moved. and they were 2 weeks behind. So it was a Thursday, they were in the conference room, brainstorming, problem solving. And Christine's boss came in and she said, I want you all to go home, spend time with your families, have fun, leave your laptops here and your work phones here, and come back Monday. So they're freaking out, going, we're already 2 weeks behind. You're out another 4 days. What's going to happen? And she said, no, leave, go home. They all went home. They were able to have joy, recover, sleep well. They came back on Monday, and that team got the system up and running to meet the deadline. They were fresh. They had a different perspective. They could problem solve better. So they had a great recovery period. The nervous system was able to get a break.
Isn't that true? You just need a break from the work sometimes to get perspective on it.
Yeah, totally. And another side note, a walk is always good. I find like if I'm in the middle of something, whether it's work or personal related, and it's, I'm at a crossroads or there's a problem, getting out and taking a walk changes everything. It changes your mindset and your perspective.
100%. You think you don't have that 20 minutes because you have the
Right.
deadline, but actually it makes you more productive.
Yes. And that's the same for meditation. For anybody that is interested or does meditate, if you don't have time for the 20-minute meditation, you need a 30-minute meditation. Because to get that recovery, your nervous system recovered, and have a fresh perspective. So the other thing is lack of control or clarity. So your people can handle a lot. They need to understand what's expected and have input as to how they do the work. So what can happen is that priorities can shift without explanation, or they may be given unclear success metrics, such as like, just do your best, because that isn't helpful. Like, right, that's not an answer. And little say in how the work gets done. And so when people have uncertainty, that creates more stress in their life. They may go down that downward spiral of, how come they took that off my plate and gave it to Mike over here? Am I losing my job? Are they taking my priorities away, or some of my job away? Am I going to get, what's going to happen? So it's easy to go down that rabbit hole when you don't know, because people tend to go to that catastrophic thinking. And when that happens, you lose trust and faith in leadership, because you're not receiving any type of update or explanation as to why some changes are being made. And clarity is calming. When we are clear on something, it gives us a little bit of control. And when we have that control, it restores our energy. And then always being on, when you're always on, whether you're, I feel like we're always on in the world, right? With the notifications from social media or whatever other thing that we're following that sends us notifications. In our personal lives, we have texts, we have emails, there's always, I feel like always something's coming at us. And then you put work on top of it that, again, might have Slack or Teams pings, their emails, right? And then sometimes your meetings are back to back, your cameras are on, your calendar is full, and you don't have any chance to shut off. I was recently talking to a CHRO who worked at a PR firm, who said she had a big problem with employee burnout, because her employees were always on. They were on with their clients, whether they were at meetings, doing projects with them, taking them out to dinner and entertaining. It was a lot of being on. And she would actually do, before there were big calls, they would do short meditations just to get ready for those, because you need to, prepare, and you need to take those breaks of always being on. I also have a friend who recently was promoted last year. And part of his promotion, his responsibilities, was to entertain customers. So, we'd say, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm taking my customers to the Lions Bears game. And I'm a Lions fan. And I would say, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. And he would say, No, it's really not, because when I'm there, I have to make sure everyone's having fun. Do they have enough food? Do they have enough beverages? Is everybody being taken care of? Is anyone getting out of line? It's a lot of stress. And what's more is that this guy, he takes his customers to, I don't want to say on vacation, but like to Aruba, and they all stay in the same Airbnb. So he does not get a break that entire time he is with them. Again, making sure that there's enough activities, that there's enough food, beverages, that everyone's having fun. He has no downtime. And he says, I just want to go home, sleep in my own bed, and lay on the couch. It's exhausting. Um, and then there's the feeling undervalued or unseen. So this has to do with like recognition. Some folks recognize only when something goes wrong. So asking an employee, why did you do that? Why did you do it this way? Why didn't you do this? That's not an example of good recognition. And people feel replaceable versus appreciated. And we as humans need to know that our work matters and that we're making an impact. A lack of recognition can lead to emotional withdrawal, and people stop going that extra mile, and stop caring. And it's not a little statistic, a big statistic is that companies lacking a recognition focus see 73% of employees more likely to be burned out.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Everyone wants to feel appreciated, that's for sure.
Yeah, they do. I think it's just the basic need of being seen and heard.
Absolutely.
There's also when work and values are not aligned. This might look like leaders saying people matter and rewarding people who are doing that overworking, where they're showing up in the evenings and on the weekends. So I know of a company where the owner is, and he should be retired. I think he's somewhat retired, yet he shows up every week for the weekly meetings. It's a small company, and he's from the era of ruling with fear and leading with fear. So he'll get on there and he'll say, so hey, Sarah, did you do what I asked you to do in that email? And if you
My
say,
heart rate already went up.
I know, right?
Hey, Sarah's enough.
Hey, Sarah, what? I know, your nervous system just went off. I'll say, and if no matter what that person answers, right, they're being called out. So you're already like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And if they say, no, I haven't had a chance. Well, why didn't you do it? You were told to do it. I mean, and belittles and demeans employees in front of the whole team. And then he may leave the call saying, I appreciate all of you and what you do.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. So those actions and words don't match. And when that happens, employees are wondering, is this even worth it? Like, what am I doing here? You know, they're feeling internal conflict, which drains their energy, and work starts to feel heavy. Have you seen any of these examples with people you know, or
not terribly recent, but
good?
really liked what you said about clarity is calming. That I could see. Anytime anyone's in an unknown situation, I think, and like you said, it immediately goes to the negative. And so even to maybe say, we don't have information on this quite yet, more information is coming, is probably way more calming and provide more clarity than not doing any updates at all. So
Exactly. Go ahead.
I just really like that going forward.
Oh, good. And so another thing that made me think of what you said. So some companies will do pulse surveys, or maybe one or two big surveys every year for culture, or just to get a temperature of what's going on. And there are those companies who they gather the data and don't do anything with it. They don't even say anything back to the employees. So it's like, to your point, if a company is taking the data and getting feedback from the employees, even if they can't act upon it, it's good to say, we received your information. We saw that this is important to you. Here's what we can do or what we're not able to do, or we're in process. It gives the employees, again, a feeling of being heard and having some clarity of what's going to happen next.
I like that.
So some invisible drivers of burnout might look like decision fatigue. So even before employees start their day, they're making hundreds of decisions. So what should I wear? I need to feed, what time do I have to feed the dog? Did anyone take the trash out? Where's my child? What way am I going to drive to work today? And that's all before you even are online or at work. So hundreds of decisions happening. And then they get to work, and then it's the emails coming in, the pings from Slack or Teams. There might be a meeting scheduled that now needs to be rescheduled. So you have to figure out, okay, so now that this meeting needs to be rescheduled, I need to look at these 3 calendars. So there's a lot of little decisions. And your mental energy is spent deciding versus doing. So when this happens, employees may look like they're checking out. They may be very slow to make decisions, because our brain's capacity to make decisions is finite. So there's only so much space for us to make decisions. And when we get to that capacity, we'll feel irritable. We're feeling depleted and fried. And there's a social and emotional load that happens at work. It's about managing your team, your coworkers, your manager, your clients, your customers, the environment. And I work with a lot of nonprofits, and they go through compassion fatigue for what they do. So I've seen them be trained on how to manage that as well. Think about the people of your employees who are the most empathetic, who's always checking in to take care of the employees, or if a situation isn't right, or piping up to make a suggestion about what is best for the team. Those people that have higher empathy, they burn out faster. They care so much that they often overextend themselves.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, we had a little back and forth on LinkedIn about the people who are like give a lot, and they can then be burnt out easily.
Mm-hmm. Oh, do they show it less than maybe others?
No, they just keep giving and giving and giving, and then you might see those, some of those signs like pulling back, or stop participating or not showing up on camera, those sorts of things.
Okay.
And then our always available culture, in the world and at work, all the notifications and things to respond to, the Slack, the Teams, emails, it keeps our brain on high alert. And watch out for those folks who are sending their emails, or they are engaging, whether it's after hours or on the weekends, or even when they're on PTO, because those people feel guilty about being offline, and they're going to struggle when they have to take the time to focus and into deep work. So their nervous system isn't getting a break. And chronic cognitive overload leads to anxiety, disengagement, and exhaustion. And I know one company had a system where they could see who hasn't taken their PTO in a long time, what they felt was too long, and then they would encourage them to then take it because they didn't want them to burn out. So I thought that was a really great way of preventively helping the employee.
Mm-hmm. We have a lot of clients that encourage their employees to take their PTO, or almost mandate it on a annual or quarterly basis. So it seems like a great way to help out with the burnout.
Yeah, I love that they do it on a quarterly basis. That's great.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I can think of someone offhand that makes someone take PTO at least once a quarter.
Oh,
Or encourages, highly encourages.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I know that, with, certain like wellness challenges, through motion connected, some incentive might be PTO. And if I bring that up to a client, they'll say, well, they don't take their PTO anyway, so that's not going to help them. I'm like, okay, that's a problem.
Right there, there's your first sign.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm.
Also, when there are unclear priorities and shifting expectations, everything is urgent and nothing is clear, and the priorities shift, the projects pile up, and employees don't know where to begin. So it looks like employees are starting over, they're second guessing their work. People are doing more and feeling less accomplished. And again, back to that uncertainty, which is so stressful. And when expectations change without the clarity, employees are hyper vigilant because they don't want to fail. So have you seen any of these traits or in your team or people, your clients?
I would say that absolutely. It's so hyper vigilant because of not wanting to fail. Definitely have noticed that. And that just comes, it almost comes off as like a loss of confidence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, in someone who was very previously confident in their work.
So here are some possible causes of burnout. They're not all of them. And a lot of these might be out of your control. Um, One of the things I want to point out is the insufficient resources and support. So I know of a company, or a lot of companies who are doing these surveys, to see where culture is or burnout. This question comes up every single time. Do you have enough resources to do your job? So this is a big one. And I know a company that has extremely high turnover. They're in a specialized industry of insurance. So that is, that you have to understand a lot. Like there's a lot involved with that whole industry and understanding and training that goes on. And they lose employees and have to hire all the time on a regular basis. So when the new employees come in, there is no onboarding process. So many of these, your face, you're like, wow.
No, none.
None. So when employees come in and they're new to the industry, how they get trained is they shadow tenured employees.
Mm.
However, they haven't been trained on like insurance as a whole or the industry, how it works, what clients are looking for. They don't have that basic understanding. And so when they're shadowing a tenured employee and on a client call or in a client meeting, they're hearing gibberish. It's making no sense to them. They don't have a foundation of understanding. So they don't have sufficient resources or support. Their manager asks, how can I support you? What kind of training do you need? These folks say, I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what I need training on because I don't know how this process works. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And then they don't have the confidence to do their job. So that insufficient resources leads into unrealistic job expectations and goals. And then if you add in inadequate sleep or rest or chronic illness and health problems on top of, what's going on at work, that's a huge fire. It's a huge fire of burnout.
Yes, it's a very bad recipe for it.
Yes.
Mm.
So burnout doesn't affect just the employee or the effect on the team. It affects health and can lead to chronic health conditions. It can affect an employee's physical health in terms of cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, or digestive problems. So I know a gentleman who worked for a manager, and when they would meet, this manager would, go over his work and say, well, why did you do that way? Why didn't you use this? Well, I don't understand. And he started feeling that he was defensive, and he started feeling his work wasn't good enough, and he was losing confidence, and he developed irritable bowel syndrome. And so that went on for a couple of years while he reported to this person. After a restructure, he ended up reporting to another manager, and his irritable bowel syndrome went away. So it really can affect your health. And then there's the mental health effects with, the chronic stress that leads to not feeling good about yourself, which leads to isolation and loneliness because you don't feel good about yourself. Your relationships get strained. And it also affects the company. It affects the spend on healthcare. It impacts retention and turnover. It reduces productivity and engagement, and it weakens the connection and morale. So it takes over everything.
So I'm excited to hear what can we do
Yes.
about burnout, and either individually or as leaders in a corporation.
Yep. So individually, for yourself, or if you see one or two employees, going through something, and now that you have better awareness, you can talk to them about a few of these strategies. So one of them being shifting from all or nothing to just enough. So back when I was doing that sales operations, I had monthly reports to do that showed sales versus budget. And I would take it by product category, and show what product categories, were actual versus budget. And then I would drill down to the item behavior and see which one, what items were reporting, were they over budget or under budget. And someone said to me, "You don't have to get to the gnat's eyelash every single time." So I'm like, okay, that's good to know. What was said was, what the people who were using those reports, they weren't getting value going to the item level. They really were just needing information at the category level. And so once I knew that, I took my time to just focus on the category level, and I gained more time, and I could, do more things because I was getting behind on my work. I'll just be honest. But I love data, so there's that. There's also helping employees institute micro boundaries, and that might look like, a 5 or 10 minutes in between meetings, so that they can reset and have a minute, right? To go to the bathroom, or, get something to drink, to maybe step outside and get a breath of fresh air. Maybe not checking emails during lunch. Another good micro boundary to start is a ritual to shut down for the day. So this helps notify your brain that, okay, my day is ending, and brain, you can, relax. So that might look like, taking 10 minutes before the end of the day and writing down your to-dos for the next day, and then shutting down your computer, closing it, and turning your work phone off, so that you have the time just to recover, and it's done. And then all these things, these drivers of burnout, these signs of burnout, are all affecting our nervous system. We are in fight or flight, and we need to regulate it. So the easiest way to regulate your nervous system is really through breath work, because you can do it anywhere. It takes a few minutes. Nobody knows you're doing it, and it doesn't cost anything. So I'm always happy to share practices if anyone's interested in that. And also exercise is another wonderful way to regulate your nervous system, because that, boosts your mood. You can sleep better. It reduces your stress. And if you can get outside, that's an extra bonus.
Stacking our habits, walking in nature.
Oh, yes, that's right.
And we could do some breathing while we're out there too.
Mm-hmm. And hit them all. So a great way to help your teams and the managers of those teams is to make sure that there are clear priorities, that they're giving clear priorities to their employees, so that they understand what they're doing, how it impacts the organization, how it impacts the company's goals, and then employees can feel that they're part of the bigger picture, that they're really part of the pie. Having reasonable workloads, so that people aren't showing up working on weekends or in the evenings, or especially when you're on PTO. That one comes up a lot in surveys. Again, can you finish your workload without having to do it after hours? Then there's psychological safety, having the space to be able to share your feelings, perhaps saying that you're feeling burnt out without feeling like somebody's going to question it and think that you're weak or that you're not motivated, but that you're able to say that in a safe space. And then recognition that feels genuine. So, it might look like, hey, Becky, thank you so much for helping me with these slides because they look so much better and they save me time. They look so much better than what I could have done. So thank you, Becky, for that. And then always the space for recovery, not just productivity, similar to Christine's story of launching the new system. So have you seen anything in teams that you've seen that worked to help address burnout?
I would say team events where we're not focused on the agenda or solving a problem or bringing a product to market, but like just truly focused on each other and having a little fun and space. I feel like team events certainly can help with morale and decrease burnout.
Yeah, definitely, because they have a chance to just connect as a community and disconnect from the work. That's a great one. Thanks, Sarah.
Yes. Often with our speakers, Amy, we've had 40 minutes of great content, and sometimes I like to just ask, like, if you had one piece of advice for the organizations that are trying to go from good to great in terms of identifying burnout and preventing burnout, do you have one thing that you really hone in and provide as advice?
Yes, I would start with recognition. It can be so easy. It doesn't need to be a big hoo-ha. I mean, it can be as simple as an email, peer-to-peer, manager to employee, or even employee to manager. Hey, again, Becky, thanks so much for using your expertise and your gifts to make my slides look beautiful, and just calling her out for what she does so naturally anyway, because it's appreciated. And that makes her feel good. And again, it doesn't have to be a big program. You can start it with just something simple and then move forward into something bigger as it takes off.
Oh, I love that. Recognition is like one of my favorite techniques for well-being and engagement as well. I think what is wonderful is it's free. It doesn't have to be a paid incentive. It's just an
Right.
acknowledgement of to an employee that they what they're doing and what they're doing well or contributing is being seen.
Absolutely. And employees value a handwritten note from their manager
Mm-hmm.
more than a gift card because it's so much more meaningful to them. It speaks to what they've done, who they are, rather than just, here's another Amazon gift card.
Absolutely.
So, some takeaways I would like for you to have with yourself is, just remember burnout is a signal. It starts small. And when we can provide small, consistent changes for our employees, that is more helpful than, a vacation. And that everybody deserves to feel well and to do meaningful work. For you, HR leaders, your teams, your employees, you, Sarah, me, Amy. And if anyone is feeling open to share, is there a small action that you can try this week? And if you go ahead.
One thing we figured out is that chat was not enabled for some reason for the meeting.
Oh,
So people have commented in the questions.
okay.
So I do have a few questions for you, but also if anyone wants to add in one small action they would like to try this week, it looks like it would be done in the question section.
Okay, thanks. Awesome. Yeah, so if anyone wants to share, I'd love to hear.
Earlier, when we were asking where people were, we did have an organization on fumes.
Mm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
it can happen, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I do have a question in the meanwhile, for anyone else that's thinking about their questions or wanting to contribute. You have something here for employees who are neurodivergent. How do you
Mm,
suggest we handle burnout when working in a high stress career?
that is a great question. And there's so much more highlighting and attention being to and about neurodivergence in the workplace. Um, I feel like with not every employee is the same. So we can't treat all employees. It's like kids, right? Or I have one kid, two dogs. I've got two dogs. They're very different. They have different needs. So if somebody who is not neurodivergent in a high stress workplace, um, really it's manager support. Working with that person to see what is acceptable for them. And how they can help. I mean, really, that open door policy and making sure that somebody is there to actively listen and help enforce or suggest some of these strategies that this person might be able to put in place to see what might work for him or her.
That's very fair. Everyone is different, so our strategies around burnout have to be different as well.
Yep. Not a one size fits all.
Not at all. Um, yes, the recording will be emailed later as a question. We have some other actions on writing thank you notes, getting outside to take a walk, enjoying the warmer weather. Wisconsin, we're in the 30s now, so that is great.
Well,
Another,
Chicago's supposed to be in the 60s next week.
okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Some of that. Okay. I know you have a free offering you want to share with everyone on the next slide, but we do have another question here.
Yep.
How do you approach different attitudes to burnout? For example, you mentioned a manager from an older generation who was less inclined to identify burnout and almost like they didn't believe in it, right, Amy?
Mhm.
Then expecting people to tough it out, but they're working with people of a different generation who aren't wanting to tough it out. Like, how do you navigate those differences in an employee population?
Yep, it's education and talking to them in words that they can understand. That might be that the Gen Z, the older person, might understand versus the Gen Z person, right? So it's really asking that older. I mean, generations in the workplace. We've got what, 4 or 5 of them now. So there's a lot going on. But asking the older employee to be open-minded and to have a conversation and educate them on, you were raised a certain way. I'm Gen X. I'm an old Gen X. I was raised like, yeah, you tough it up. You go through it. You don't call anyone about anything unless your arm is broken or you're bleeding out. I mean, it was just you just keep going. Um, and we didn't have a pandemic which shaped us. We did not lose everything in a second. So so folks, younger folks are, they're more open to talking about their emotions, and they've experienced more in their younger lifetime than the older folks did in their younger lifetime. So that's a lot of words for really saying education and awareness of the differences in generation and asking that person to be open-minded, because it's not one size fits all.
Mhm,
And again, people are different people. So
mhm.
you have to take that into account.
It seems like the education on the signs that you shared, like the signs are the signs of burnout. They're not
Mhm.
personality traits. They're not, someone doesn't come to the table wanting to be cynical from the start.
Right.
And so I imagine like just that re-education that what you're looking at is not a personality, but an actual problem that should be addressed should be helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
This has been great. A question on burnout trends. Do you see it as becoming more of a problem, less of an issue, or unsure? I love that. I hear
Oh,
so
that
much about burnout, especially since the pandemic. So it's good that employers are recognizing that it's an issue, but the trend itself, information would be interesting.
Yes. So the trend itself, it's continuing. It's not slowing down. It keeps continuing. And I think, now we've seen some layoffs, right? So people are being asked to do more. Their workload is greater, for the folks who are working. So it just continues.
Hmm. Oh, that's unfortunate.
Hmm.
Some really good insight. In my decades leading professionals, I have found some people with burnout are their worst enemy. They blame the organization and the world. And I can just see that someone going on, I have so much work.
Hmm.
Everyone knows, yeah. And they really need coaching on how to set their own boundaries. Is that
Yes.
something you align with, Amy?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yes. I mean, I think the greatest thing that managers can do is to coach, with their micro boundaries, or, other boundaries that they may need to implement. Um, yeah, because those cynical folks, yeah, they're angry, and nothing's going to make it better for them, right? So they need to, um, also be open, and open to these boundaries and what they can do to put in place to excuse me, to have some space.
Mhm. So, tell us about this QR code you have here.
Yep. So I have a special offer for folks who are here or even on demand watching, a complimentary burnout risk assessment for teams. So what this does is, it is a questionnaire it goes out to all employees on your team. It's confidential and anonymous. All the insights come back to me, where I aggregate it, and then I present the insights back to you, along with recommendations on how to address the burnout, because this is meant to find those hidden signs of burnout before it takes place. So this is preemptive. And because every team who participates gets their own link, I have a QR code that is an email already put together, just saying, I'd like some more information on this, that goes direct to my email, and I can follow up.
Oh, thank you, Amy. What a wonderful offer.
Thank you.
I'm sure you would love to connect with our audience, or
Yep.
hopefully our audience would love to connect with you. So here is how to get in touch with Amy. And we really, really appreciate all that you've shared
Thank
today.
you.
I always like to connect as well. So if we'd like to connect on LinkedIn, or join our Great Culture Club. If you're not already a part of that, that's our monthly newsletter where we provide digital assets and assets in the mail every other month, to help you reward, recognize, and engage with employees. So appreciate everyone listening and hope you all have a great day.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amy.